want you to give a very warm welcome. Thanks to Paul and Dave and Mark for asking me to do this clinic. Like I said, we're on tour. I'm only here for like 10 hours and we're leaving tomorrow morning. We've been on a 2-week tour, which has been incredible. We're headed to Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma tomorrow, and then we're headed home, which should be much welcome by that time. I'm going to do some playing of a couple solos, some that I've written, and I'll talk about them first, and then we might talk about a couple of things, and then we got 2 pieces that can play right today, possibly. Cartograph and which pillar? Or you're just gonna do one? Just pillar 6? Okay, perfect. Good, because that's about as much time as we have for. So I'll do some playing first, and then maybe at the end we can talk about questions, and especially if you have any questions about the military life in general. I mean, that's who I'm here representing, and that's what something that I didn't know a lot about when I was a student that I wish I knew more about maybe. But first I'll start with some playing. So I'm going to play one of my pieces called Number 28. It's a quad solo, heavily influenced by Joseph Tompkins. You'll hear immediately, right? When I was a student here, I was obsessed with the Joseph Tompkins thing, and I wanted to try to find a way to blend it with my interest in marching percussion. So this was my attempt at that. I wrote it when I was 28 years old. I don't have any deeper information to give you than that on this solo. I did remember one thing about the solo. The theme is based on my impression of what Paul played every time he tuned the snares in the distance when I was teaching him. Very true story. He always used to play like that. So I just slowed it down. I'm not sure if I ever told you that, but that's true. That's how I did. All right, next I'm going to play. How many of you guys know what the Old Guard is? It's one of the premier military bands in DC. The one that wears the red and has the wigs. You've ever seen videos of the guys that wear the wigs? But they're all insanely killer percussionists who just do that as their full-time job, you know. And the previous section leader of the Old Guard was a guy named John Mark Riley. Do you guys, any of you guys recognize that name? He's written a couple rope drum solos that are kind of crossover. You can kind of play them on snare drum, concert drum, or rope drum. But since Paul has a really nice rope drum in his office, I'm gonna try to play that solo here. It's called Dracton Elizabeth. It's kind of a, Mark Riley describes it as just like a concoction of a bunch of different influences from his travels, like going to Europe and American. So you hear some different type of rudiments that he kind of tried to combine all into one solo. Yeah, this is that Dave Loyal drum that are killer. He makes all the drums for the Old Guard now, and he makes a couple of our drums in the Air Force Band. I'm sure if any of you guys have gotten anywhere deep into rope drumming, his name comes up right away. He's like the leading guy, and he's based out of DC too, actually. He's an amazing guy. Used to be in the Old Guard, and then retired and just started making drums for the Old Guard, which has been awesome. All right, next piece I'm going to play is also, along with my Joseph Tompkins obsession, is how many of you guys have heard of Guy Lefebvre? So Guy Lefebvre is the French drummer who made these series of books that influenced Joseph Tompkins to delve deeper into this style. So maybe if you didn't know any better, you're going to think I'm just playing a Tompkins solo, but it's from kind of the inspiration of all his studies that he went really deep into and kind of Americanized it. So there's a lot of charge stroke rudiments. If you've played any of those Tompkins things with like the, almost like the double dotted, you hear a lot of those in here, and that's where it came from. I'm playing 3 shorter etudes from one of his books, kind of pieced together. That gives me a good excuse to remind you. This Dynasty snare drum, they brought just for this clinic so I could use it, and they wanted to make sure I pointed out, this is like their, what's the right terminology called? Like single stave drum where, it's maybe a 3-ply, but if I could take off the head and show you the inside, there's no seam. It's like a full inch thick drum, so it's a little bit heavier and it's got a little bit of a darker sound to this, right? This is one of their new products that they kind of sent here just to show off and for me to check out, and they're trying to roll it out and make it a little bit more mainstream. I'll pretend like I did that on purpose. Yeah, have you ever, I think it's called, I wish I could say it in French, but it's called like Progressive Technique is the name of the American name of this book. And he kind of like, it's an interesting book if you ever find it. I don't know if someone fresh has it, but it's actually like, he claims it's like a drum set book, and there's like hi-hat and bass drum parts in it, but the snare drum parts are that. If you like read the beginning of the book, you're like totally blown away that it's not a concert snare drum technique book. It's just like a general technique book. All right, last song I'm going to play is my newest piece that I wrote for the Modern Snare Drum Competition. I guess, just the most recent one, 2025. It's a piece called Cycles, and I've never told anyone this in my clinics, but it's actually, it's written about my daughter, and I wrote it when I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, so I'm like new dad life right now, to be honest. And I wrote it when I was on my parental leave, because the deadline was like the last day of my parental leave by coincidence. So if none of you know, but Paul knows. If you know anything about being a new dad or just like having a child, it's like the period of like 3 to 6 months and just like waking up and making sure everything's in a schedule. That's what my life was. So I literally wrote the piece about the cycles, the wake cycles and the sleep cycles of what I was living in with my daughter at the moment. And so you hear right at the piece starts with some of these like diminuendo buzz rolls. That's the sound machine that I would hear going during her naps over and over when I was writing the piece. I'm not kidding, that's how I started it. And then there's this theme comes up a couple times. It's kind of just like a at a time, 2 clicks. That was like me turning our light on, because we kind of have like this click light switch in our room. Some of the pedal bass drum is like my footsteps walking towards her. It's like me imagining her waking up and I'm waking her up. And then all the kind of stuff in between was like my impression of how I was keeping her active and awake in the wake windows, because the goal is to like entertain them and make sure they're tired before the next nap. So it gets really active, and I don't need to go into details, but each cycle, I have 3 sleep-wake cycles, was like something that I remember doing with her that week, like playing on the bounce cycle. So I kind of have this like 3/8 or like 6/8 bounce feel, and I found a reason to write all these little wake window sections. So it should be, hopefully you can kind of imagine or come up with your own reasoning for like what these little themes have, but they all had a reason. When I'm writing, I definitely need parameters, and the only parameter that Mark Tomalakis gave me was like, we need it by March. I was like, okay, well, I got to give myself something, so I just like picked things and found really set checkpoints and then wrote to those checkpoints, right? thanks for listening to all that. That's not if you buy the piece, it's not in the write-up, so only you to know. Thought that would be like too personal to include in the whole write-up. All right, awesome. That's all I got to play. What time is it? So I'm not doing this. I know everyone's got like 7 things to do tonight, including myself. Why don't we do? Let's do pillars first, just to make sure we have enough time, and then that'll still give us some buffer time at the end to talk about a couple of things. I really want to make sure I talk about the job since it's just a unique thing I have, right? So let me move some of the stuff out of the way. Let's do pillars first. Do you guys have a score that I can look at?
I have a PDF if you want.
I mean, sure, yeah.
Something.
I mean, I've heard the piece, but I've never coached it. So.
You got something?
Yeah, I can send it.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Put it by the door. We're eventually gonna have to do it.
Please go to the hallway.
I like how
Up here.
Yeah, it's better.
I can airdrop to you or something? All the
It's at the end. Okay. Well.
Got this. Let's work.
What are you looking for? I need a travel fan. It's like the music stand. I think the rope. Yes, they are.
That's Patrick's.
Yeah.
Hey,
His name's on it.
That's Patrick's pedal.
Okay.
So yeah, bring it out here.
Where should you have?
Put it in the hallway. Eli.
Is it your recital tonight?
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, oh, there we go.
Where do you want?
I'm just. Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Did you like where you guys are decent?
No, we just like good music on. Change it.
I'm curious if you talk about what concerts you guys did, 'cause I had no idea you guys would like play Akira stuff.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm doing.
It's so just drinking it. It's like, oh, that's good.
Caleb wants one.
Oh,
that was
like
like
percussion or mixed chamber stuff?
We did both, yeah. We did like no. Let me scoot back, Sandra. It was one chamber piece I was in, and I was the percussionist, and it was like, yeah, that's really okay, cool.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna hear pipes that actually sustain that.
Is that right? You got a different mounting system? Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna have to like 10%.
Yeah, or whatever.
Great job.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
They're still recording. Oh. Copy what you just.
I'm gonna have to like not like.
I don't care.
Little for it. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's.
I was just gonna stay on drums, and then I later tonight.
No, tonight I'll use it.
Still playing my part.
Oh, it's just like whenever.
Just staying in the middle. We can put a black towel. So I didn't find a stuff for you. Does that make sense?
And there's no towel, Alex, for there's a towel in the. I'm not as worried about the lower output as much as I am in the middle of it.
No,
So
it's a thing, it throws me off.
These boxes. You guys are good, actually. I don't want to do too close.
Yeah. I won't hold that.
Is that right? On this
Sorry about
back
that.
front too?
No, like on the all I have before the thirds.
Yes.
I guess you guys also just fucking, how long have you been playing this? Like 7 years at this point? I'm sure, yeah. So, just before I'm really trying to make any changes. You're playing this tonight, right?
Right.
Well then take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, you know? And because it sounds great as is, I would assume if you play like that tonight, you'd be happy with the performance. That was really great, honestly. So I'll just present some things that maybe I'd be like, if you are playing this past this, or do you have any performances after this recital? Or maybe, for all you know, you'll play it again in your career because you're all in UNT, so you're going to keep playing it. But I'm going to work backwards because my favorite part of this whole pillar is that the solo thing at the end that you have over top of everyone. Where does that start? At
74.
Yeah. So maybe we start at the beginning of that section with all the chord notes. But I guess my overarching comment was just rhythmically amazing. I wish that actually all the quarter notes were less and the solo was like, you were like more like you're playing cello or something, like going way dramatic with the dynamics. And I know that maybe this is, I'm definitely very conscious that you guys just played this for Andy last week, so whatever he said, great. Let's just like try to do it different. If I'm saying something opposite, there's my grain of salt. I feel like it could just be way more dramatic, especially because of using those mounts, which is such a great idea. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, that's amazing. Because you could play like so freaking soft on the marimba with those and really make people lean in, and it could be really cool. And I don't think you got to that like 1% mark. That could be really interesting. So I guess, no, you guys picked. You start like 72, so you
Yes.
get like 2 bars lead in or something.
Mhm.
That's good. Cool. Oh, sorry, I was just talking as you're playing.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah, no,
sorry.
I was like already a little bit more dramatic. Even like, I feel like if I was playing this note of 76, da, 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 you like fade away, you know what I mean? Like you're exhaling. And then you're like, oh, here we go again, I'm gonna do another statement. To me, like the first time I heard this, it was like, I imagined Andy like was dictating a speech or some voicemail or something weird that, you know, he would do. That's like what it sounds like. He's trying to dictate speech to me. And when you're talking like that, you want to have highs and lows and rises and falls. So I guess my long-term thing would be like, if you're playing this for another month, like write some work to it, or do something that would like inspire you to come up with some reasoning for your dynamics. Like I was talking about with my piece, like I try to give myself a reason why I'm playing really soft or something like that. So do it again and don't stop if I say something.
Okay.
Just try to find times to just experiment. You don't obviously don't do it this way tonight, but see what you can do with it right now. Yeah, okay, cool stuff there. Yeah, it is some really cool ones. Yeah, especially like when he even writes, the pianist one of those like the 5-3 thing he always writes. It's like, so it's like, and I would even,
Go for it.
you know, I think I would even do like, maybe play on the note. Or something like that to give yourself extra drama. And I would, if I'm being like orchestral enforcement about it, I would definitely be playing like the whole thing like a xylophone, like, not, so you don't get, and I can hear that a little bit, like your right hand, left hand.
Okay.
I'm being overly specific, but if you were gonna record it, like, I would want it to be so, like, streamlined of a sound, you know what I mean? To help yourself out in the dynamics and make it a little easier. With those mallets, like, it's not like it sounds steady,
Mhm.
you still get the articulation anyway, you know what I mean? We'll do it one last time,
Yeah, sure.
we won't go quite as far. Yeah, cool. I liked it the one time you could do it on this single note, but I don't know, just thoughts on that. Like, you got a solo like that at the top of the marimba. We play mallet parts in the Air Force Band with those pink rubber mounts at the top of the marimba all the time. So it's like where my life is over there. So I'm always trying to like kind of just play like a xylophone. You know, that's what it is. That's what that part is. He's just not gonna make you pull out a xylophone for this piece. It wouldn't match very well, I don't think. Backing up, there's like the arrival where your theme comes back. You know that the theme from the beginning. Where's that, like towards the end where it comes back after a long time? It's like 20.
Oh, 59.
59. Yeah. Like, I guess my comment there would be like, I was expecting like a bigger, huge buildup because that's like a huge checkpoint. Everyone immediately recognized that I came back, but I was like, oh yeah, I forgot the team came back. To be honest, I don't know, like let's find a way to back up into that and make just those last two measures super exciting and dramatic, and that measure 59 is really undeniable. You know, so maybe 56.
6, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And just play like, let's just play those three measures and see if we can all make sure we coalesce at 59. Yeah, that was even a little better. I think bass marimba has to lead it. He even marks you, at piano versus everyone else. Like you need to like rise from below them and then go past them and then like pick them up into the crescendo, right? Gotcha. Let's do it again. No, start even softer. You got to be like underneath everything in the bass marimba part. So they're listening for you, and then you pull them out. Nice, yeah. Engage the crescendo. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, then like if you really get that low, that by the time you go to 16th notes, everyone's like, I know some things about that. That was way more exciting. Can you go back go back 54, so we can even get, so maybe like just those 2 bars before you would be you. Boom, getting down to that point, just on those 4 notes. See if you can really 50%, 25%, whatever. Of this piece that's just like a wash of sound for 20 minutes. Yeah. That is one moment that could be a point, you know what I mean? That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. Also, don't do that tonight, but if you record it, do that. Yeah. Let's back it up a little bit more. So all wash. You guys nailed it on the rhythms, man, like the switching to the 7/8 and stuff. It was really great job, honestly. I've listened to this piece 100 times, but I've never actually got to look at the score. So that was also exciting for me to see that. Oh, that's what they're doing, and they're freaking killing it. That was amazing. Yeah. Let's just start it a couple of times. I hate to just harp on the melody thing again, but I also had that thought, like as soon as that whole theme, what can you do to make it more interesting because it happens so many times at the beginning? He doesn't give you anything, almost at all. So if I didn't know Andy personally, I would probably say like go for it and be really dramatic with it. I know maybe he probably just wants it to be really accurate and rhythmically perfect, but like pretend like you didn't just meet him last week and try to like how can you make a little bit of dynamic music out of this and make a couple of decisions, see if you can get them to follow you based on what the melody's doing. Just start right at the top. The first one I think is just a statement, but maybe by the time you get to 10, it happens the second time. Let's find a way to be a little creative with that melody.
Can do. Perfect. Yeah, let's just focus on the beginning to A a couple times. Okay, that was interesting. I felt like, well, I definitely knew it was different. It was way more interesting. But still, I would say explore the lower end more than the top end. Like this is, at least, me as a professional musician now playing in a band, I'm here with like watching you guys listen to play percussion on something. I'm like, God, I miss being able to play that soft. Like, how about you just like take advantage of that you're in a chamber setting and you're gonna about to play like in a chamber recital hall and like only explore that low end in something like this. You know what I mean? Also, can you guys? I'm gonna say like the same thing I did earlier about when you get to that seventh and it's the first time you guys play together. Are you trying to foreshadow, or do you think it should be like a subito? I don't know what the right answer is, but like right now I don't know what you're trying to do. I guess is my comment. The kind of crescendo some of you did, and some of you just played loud instantly. He doesn't really give you either again,
Right.
but it probably needs to be one or the other because it's so stark when that happens. You know, what do you think? Let's just try a subito this time. Like try not to foreshadow at all, and everyone just jump like half the dynamic on that seventh and see what it's like when you get there. All right, start at the top again. I mean, you all did the jump on the seven lit. To me, actually, that kind of sounded awkward. It was like almost too aggressive. Maybe do like a slight crescendo into it this time. How about when we get to 6 and you come in with that bass from room line? You're really like pronouncing yourself, which is amazing. But I wish you would like blend that in sooner. You're kind of like sticking out up until the seven lit instead of like here I am, I'm adding to the recipe or whatever, right? What? Definitely don't change this tonight, but the more that I'm well, don't change this, but also what I'm about to say. The more I'm listening to you play, I'm thinking like those mouths might be too soft. Are those the hardest blues?
There's one more. There's one harder, but these.
Well, just like versus when you play the solo at the end with that, it's such a cool articulation. I just hear so much of like the core of the mouth with that when you're trying to. Now that I asked you to like do more dynamic range, like it sounds kind of thuddy. Just I thought. I love she. I mean, she's like my mentor, but like, I don't know. Maybe a different type of rubber mallet. But I guess you have to play some like rolls and stuff later. Right?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, and it's
got to be more versatile.
Yeah, and then once I go straight from rolls into the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair. But I would just say, if we were just playing top to A, it would not be the choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that just makes me think maybe there's a better option. There's this that may or may not be innovative professions. Maybe it is. I hope it is. I'll say it. But I'm not sponsored running with the Air Force, so you can use whatever amount you want. Not legally allowed. Okay. Let's do it again. Let's this time you're gonna try to crescendo into 7 lit.
Yeah.
Exactly like not what's written. Let's just see if that is a more interesting effect that time. Last time at the top. Keep going this time. Okay, cool. Just wanted to keep going with transition. I thought that was really cool. That time at 18 and 19, you kind of like went down to the piano for a second. It was really interesting. I thought that was cool. If we were going back to what we were trying to do at the beginning, into that first 7-lit, that was like a little cooler to me. That you just give a little bit of foreshadowing some things that happened, you know what I mean? And the 7-lit was way cleaner that time. Because you didn't all jump into it, you know, which I asked you to do, so that's cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. Man, the thing at A is so killer. You guys are so good at that. That's amazing. I literally just wanted you gone so I could look at the music while you're playing it again. It's like, yeah. But yeah, then the phrasing that third time through the melody was really cool. Great job. I won't make you guys play. You're about to play this all night. Let's end there so we have enough time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Nice job, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
My story about Andy Akihara is that he wrote my high school drama music and taught my high school band camp.
No.
Yeah, he's from South Carolina and I grew up in North Carolina on the border. And he used to write our music and he'd come teach us at band camp when he was like just aged out of cadets. Mine was crazy then too. I played top bass drum, which was his instrument, and drum corps. Do you guys know Andy marched drum corps for like 5 seasons? And that Cadets 2000 show is like my favorite show of all time, and he got to teach me. But he was so intense to me because I was the top bass drummer, and I was like a little 8th grader playing top bass drum. And I have so many searing memories. Before I knew who he was, of him just like screaming at me because I didn't have my music memorized. And then he came to play with the Air Force Band like last year or a year and a half ago, and I got to tell him all about it. And yeah, he like apologized. I'm so sorry. It was funny, yeah. So I like knew who he was since I was in 8th grade, and then when his first solo came out, that Stop Speaking solo, my best friend Tyler Samus played it here on his senior recital like the year it came out. And I was like, that can't be the same person. There's no way that's that guy. And we like hooked up his picture and I was like, oh my god. And then he turned into this, yeah. It was amazing that I got to like tell him. And he remembered my high school, he remembered everything. He was like, oh my god, I taught your band camp. It was amazing. It was a very amazing full circle moment. Playing in like the concert next to him. So cool. So I want to make sure I have time to just talk about my job a little bit, because that's actually why I'm here, right? And then I'll take some questions too. But there's always some talking points that I want to make sure I talk about, or that I feel like will probably answer half the questions. So the biggest thing that most people don't realize about military bands is the different more than the different branches. You know, there's different tiers of military music, right? Maybe some of you know that. But so if you're getting towards the end of your degree and you're looking at auditions, you know, do you guys? I don't even know. Do you guys still do audition cafe? I kind of is there a website where you guys all look for any auditions that are happening? I don't remember what it.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs, that's what it is, yeah. I'm glad to know that still exists, yeah. Well, if any of you plan on taking auditions in the future, there's a website called Musical Chairs. You can go to look up auditions. There's a huge difference between the military bands that are in Washington, D.C., plus a couple other few ones, and then there's 30 other ones that we call regional bands, or fleet bands or something. Those are well, there's two things. The main difference is you are much lower making, so you don't make the same amount of money when you come in. And it's not some musicians in there maybe don't have a degree. Some of them could be coming actually from the military first and then auditioning in. You know, you've probably heard the term premier band. The premier band status is the Air Force band, the Navy band, the Marine band, and the Army band in Washington, D.C. And then there's the Army Field Band. There's one band in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy. All of those bands, we audition first before we sign up for the military, so those are unrelated things. I was playing gigs in Chicago, doing whatever, taking every audition, and I just went to take this audition. There's no commitment to do anything when you audition for these military bands. It's kind of an outside thing, which is a nice perk to just to get some of the best musicians, is that we get the best musicians to come audition. So after you do the audition, if you win, then you do the whole military thing. But the difference with the premier bands is that we come in as, if you don't know, if you don't have someone in your family in the military, there's 9 different ranks, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. The premier bands, you start at 6, because almost all of us have a master's or doctorate degree. It doesn't matter, but because of that, they just categorize us all, and we started at E6. So you kind of get to go in with a living wage right away, competitive with a lot of mid-tier orchestras. I'm making the same as that, and then the longer you stay in, you obviously get promoted and you get raises that way. So it's
the regional bands, you might come in, with literally half my pay, and you can work your way up to mine, but at the premier bands, all the ones from Washington DC, you kind of just start at the top right away. It's like a thing that they wrote into the law. And actually, the story I heard was John Philip Sousa literally was the one that proposed it, because he used to be the conductor of the Army band, and he convinced Congress that, like, if you want good musicians, you're gonna have to start them here, and it still stayed the same. So it's a totally different lifestyle change, like, right away, which is amazing. Yeah, you don't have to do any of the military thing or sign up or do any of that unless you win the job. So if you're ever thinking about doing a military audition, you can do it, and you can win and say no. You know what I mean? When I was at Northwestern, she had to remind me of that all the time, because she was the one that asked me to take the audition. She was like, "You'd be great, just take every audition, go do it." And I was like, "I'll never be in the military. It's so dumb, it's so anti-military, I'm like Mr. Musician, whatever." She was like, "Just say no if you win." And then of course I won, and I was like, "No way you're gonna say no, because you have like a career in front of you." So, like, I literally called her, and she's like, "So what did you say?" I was like, "I said yes right away." Yeah. You change your mind really quick about what goes on. You do. Oh, I'll talk about it in a second. I did have to go to basic training. You do have to, like, I am active duty Air Force, and that is all technically true. I'm like on duty 24/7 and all that. We don't really deploy unless you volunteer to be in the rock band that deploys, but actually that's not happening right now, because usually we deploy to Qatar, and there's obvious reasons we don't have a band there right now. But you're never in danger of being moved all around the country if or had friends whose parents were in the military. Washington DC, permanent. I'm there until I retire. That's another awesome benefit of being in one of the premier bands, that you can't be moved around, because they don't want to lose the person they just invested all this extra money in, right? So you're always permanent. It kind of gets you like, you often forget maybe that you're like also in the military with the people that may enlist it, because we just have a couple defining benefits like that, that really make it different. But I did have to go to basic training for 2 months, and then never again. It was 2 months of my life that I will admit was really difficult. But the whole time when you're coming out of it that you're going to be a musician afterward. You're guaranteed, like, you're going straight to the Air Force band. So you just have to, like, get through the short part. And it's worth it when I get to talk about maybe something that I also didn't think about when I was a student, which is like this is a weird thing to talk about in a percussion unit, but like the life benefits and like the healthcare and things like that you really don't think about when you're a student, but as soon as you get the job, you think about it immediately. Like, I just had my first daughter, and we didn't have to pay for anything, for any healthcare, for anything, for any birth. We didn't have to pay for any of that. Her college is paid for, no matter, like, she can pick from like 300 colleges in the United States completely free. All of those things are just a given just by being in the military, because I went to basic training for 2 months. You know what I mean? And I will have a pension when I retire for the rest of my life. My wife has free healthcare. My daughter will have free healthcare. Once I retire, our healthcare costs like $50 a month or something hilarious. Like, that alone makes, on top of being able to have the salary and having that feeling of just comfort and like having those benefits is reason enough that I always tell all my students who are interested in auditioning, they're like, yeah, if you're even thinking about it, you gotta try it, you know what I mean? Sure, I would also love to be in an orchestra, and that is also a great job, but because of those little extra benefits we get, I would argue that like it's on the same level for different reasons because of those extra things we get, What am I missing? What other questions do you guys have about what life is like when you're in one of these bands?
A mentor of mine was in the ceremonial band,
Okay.
and he had another duty that was assigned to him other than just playing. Do you have something similar to that, or
Mhm.
is your only assignment just playing in the Air Force band?
You can kind of choose your own path, but yeah, we're a self-run organization. Like, we don't have administration people that work for us. We all are our own admin. So that's true. I'm like the operations security manager and the emergency management person that when you're not in rehearsal, you do have to go check your government email and answer these emails, you know what I mean? But I say you can kind of choose your own adventure because it's not a requirement. It's a requirement if you want to be promoted and be like the leader of the band and like kind of work your way up the pyramid. But no one forces you to do it. It's kind of just like an extra thing. I will say that was a hard pill to swallow when I was like, 26 and just got the job, and I was like, wait, I have to do a computer work? And like, well, you just need to check your email every day. And you're like, okay, yeah. The number of times that I have to do something I have 3 like extra duties,
is like once a month maybe that I have to like sit at the computer and like do something not music related, you know, because you can kind of, I picked those jobs because obviously I still play a lot and I'm still really heavily involved in the musician side, so you can kind of, no one told me I had to do them. I was like, I'm gonna pick these jobs because they're like really heavy for like one day a month, and then I can not worry about them. So you can kind of choose not to do the crazy ones, to be honest, you know what I mean? And I have no intention on being like the leader of the Air Force Band, so I'm not really worried about it.
You mentioned like the rock band that's not happening right now, and that just made me think of like, what would you say to like, basically like a parent who's just like so anti-militaristic, like they won't even like accept the idea that, you know, someone
right.
Just to like, just like a person like that, what would you say to them to like quell any fears if you have something?
I mean, I would tell them like, you gotta maybe talk to someone like me or someone who's in the group that there's the Air Force Band and none of the premier bands, or that's where I don't think any of the regional bands, no one has ever been deployed into combat ever in the history of the existence of the military. Like it's a non-sequitur. It's not even a thing. But they wouldn't even want us to go because we don't know how to shoot a gun. Like, I did it like one day in basic training and I was terrible. And they're like, pass. You know, like it's so yeah, like that always puts me at ease. It's like, and I know there's lots of things happening that I'm not at liberty to talk about, but we are just so far down the totem pole. Yeah, nothing's even during like COVID and all the National Guard things, like we were in DC and they're still like, we're not gonna use the band, like we're, you know, like we just, like, you know what your skill set is and what your hired is. Like literally my job description on like the official government form says like Premier Band Percussionist. That is like the military duty title. So we're so separated. I guess all you can say is just like, well, you should go to a concert and see that it's like, I mean, if you can go to the concert tonight amongst your 7 other concerts you have to go to, you'll see that it's just very, you would have no idea if we weren't in uniform, like what our job was, you know what I mean? And that's kind of the point. Our role in the military is to be community outreach. We're like supposed to show you like the human side of the military, which we do. And then all you hear about in the news is the other arm of the military, which is like the brute force part. We're like not even associated with that, you know what I mean? I think people just maybe don't see it enough, which is the whole point of us going on tour.
Right.
You know?
Maybe you mentioned it, but in terms of job security, how long does your contract last?
Yeah, you sign like 4-year contracts that are like enlistments. We sign 4-year enlistments, and then you can kind of choose. So you're locking yourself into your first 4 years when you do accepted military position. So I guess that's different than like an orchestra. You can't just like bail. You literally can't because you sign your life away a little bit. But I would say that I only know like 2 people in my 10 years that really decided to leave after 4 years. It's like a 92% rate of people that stay for 20 years and then do like a military retirement because it's such a nice work life, to be honest. I mean, if I'm being fully transparent, like my hours per week that I am doing something for the Air Force Band probably averages out to like 15 maybe hours a week. I'm not exaggerating at all. Tour is the craziest part, obviously, because I'm gone for 2 weeks, but like a typical day on tour is don't miss the bus at 4:30 in the afternoon, and just that's it, and you just have free time. I chose to come here, but like if I wasn't, we were at Waco this morning, and all my friends just like hung out in Waco, and they're driving up to the Murchison right now. You know, it's so even then I'm working, but it's a very easy work-life balance. I spend like half as much time on I probably spend more time on Penland Regiment than I do Air Force Band, which is hilarious. Because I'm getting paid like 1/10 the amount. But like mentally my priorities are usually Air Force, or usually like Phantom Air Force Band until I get like an emergency email and I'm like, okay, I got it. It's just email, you know.
So you obviously do a lot of side projects on top of what your responsibilities are. Would you say like the schedule that the Air Force gives you as a percussionist allows you to have a lot of freedom to do a lot of other creative projects?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, yeah. I taught Santa Clara for 8 of the 10 years I was at Santa Clara. I was in the Air Force Band, and still, you know, not on tour as much as like some of the other techs who didn't have full-time jobs. But I was on tour every single year, went to every single camp. Now writing for Phantom, and like, it's never gotten in the way. They've never questioned why I'm doing it or what I'm doing. And it, you know, lots of people in our band are like playing with the National Symphony, playing with all the local symphonies. There's tons of time to do that. Especially if you don't have a child. There's a lot of time to do that, just to be honest, yeah. Writing music is perfect for me because I do it when she's napping in the basement. But yeah, I mean, I would say every person that's like my age, like younger in the band, has a whole like separate life and career outside of the Air Force band. It's really common.
Would you say that because of your job and like the benefits it gives, it allows you to be, it gives you more opportunity to do the things that you want to do?
1000%. For me, because I just want to be a composer and an arranger, it is like the most ideal. I mean, actually, you guys all know who Tom Merrick is. I would hope, you know, when I got in the band, he was my section leader. I was in the ceremonial band when I started, which I was the one doing funerals at Arlington Cemetery. That's also in our umbrella of Air Force band, but you can kind of choose to do ceremonial or concert band. And Tom Merrick was my section leader and my supervisor. And as soon as I realized like what he does and that how much free time, I was just like modeled my whole life off him. He was like, oh yeah, you just have tons of time, just go home and write and keep the most of the eggs in that type of basket, especially if you want to move to the concert band eventually. He kind of told me, because you have to do tours like this, which isn't quite as flexible. Like in the summers, it's harder for me to come on tour because I chose to be in the concert band. We play concerts like every Friday night out of this park, so I knew that was going to happen. If I was still in the ceremonial band playing funerals in Arlington Cemetery, I could like take 4 weeks vacation and go on tour and do whatever. So that's why he stayed there for 20 years, because he was with the Bluecoats. Like every weekend, Tom was gone. Like every Friday, he'd have a flight to catch and go to Bluecoats. And like everyone's no questions asked. Yeah, please go. You know, it was encouraged, honestly, because you're like representing us and doing an awesome music ambassador activity outside of the Air Force band.
I'm just curious, because I've heard this like has happened to other people, but when you were in basic, did you ever catch any like extra flack for being a musician?
Yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah, yeah, because they know about the promotion thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made it like 6 out of the 8 weeks before people started finding out that I was gonna be like an E6 the day after basic training. And it's called like your drill sergeant. Mine was an E5 at the time, and he found out I was an E6, and he roasted me in front of my parents. It was like that he waited till the day of graduation where like your parents can come visit, and he like screamed at me in the hallway and then laughed about it. But he was like, "That's fucking awesome," but I'm pissed that you're gonna be E6. He was like so mad at me. Yeah. But they can't really do anything to you, especially if you gotta like, if I had to rank it, speaking as an Air Force person, Air Force basic training is like the easiest, most, yeah. And that's not like a rumor, that is for real. Like, they're not allowed to curse at us, they can't touch us, they can't like, all they can do is just like yell at you and you're like, yes sir, you know, like it was like annoying, but it wasn't like what maybe movies you've seen where like Marine basic training, and they really do, like, they do a lot of physical things and it's really intense. For what it's worth, the Marine concert band doesn't go to basic training. If you're like keeping track and you really do want to be in the military band, to be honest, that's the one you want to be in. For real, they have this special status, just the Marine band. Because Marine basic training is so intense, they knew they wouldn't get the best musicians. They, like a long time ago, they got that waived. So they just have to go to like a 2-week military class to learn how to be in the military. And then you go to the Air Force, they go to the Marine band. And they still get all the military benefits and everything. Yeah, that is definitely like, if you're just trying to just get in and be a military musician, that is the job you wait for the opening for. And I'd say next in line is us, because ours is very like low-key basic training, but you do have to go to the full thing.
I know we don't have much time, but can you talk about the audition process? And
Oh yeah.
Is it a mix of like marching, concert, like you do drum set too, or like what kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the audition process is literally exactly what you described. It's kind of like, the biggest difference between auditioning for an orchestra and auditioning for a military band is that they want you to be extremely well-rounded, right? Because like I just said, sometimes I'll get called to play a funeral and I'm playing on a rope drum and marching down the sidewalk like in a little funeral parade. And then like tonight I'm playing xylophone on a concert band piece. And that can be week to week. And then if the drum set player goes down, they need one of us to play like at the Pentagon at some gig or something like that. Those type of things, you just kind of like the next domino falls when you're next in line. So yeah, in the audition process I had to do, because mine was for the ceremonial band at the time, mine was really marching heavy. And I had to do like marching drum sight reading. I had to play with next to Tom Merrick and like play a spree and stuff like that. Because we do like a marching thing once a year. There's like a big, it's called military tattoo, and we actually play some real stuff. So that was part of the audition process. And then you get shipped to the next room and I had to play like 7 excerpts. And then I got to the next room and I had to sight read 3 drum set charts. You know, and sometimes they make you play with the trio just so the guys can vote with you. And then if you make it to the final round, then you have to do an interview and maybe some more sight reading. I think I had to sight read some marches, and then maybe cycle and play like every part with them. That was a big part of it. Obviously, that's a huge part of the job. We play a lot of marches. And your ability to play like march cymbals is a huge thing, because I never did that in my life before this job, and now it's like the only thing I do. But it's a serious skill. So yeah, I guess I would say, if you're ever thinking about that in the future, I practiced drum set. I wouldn't say that's my forte, but I practiced drum set going to that audition way more than I ever had to, since I was a student here. And then I kind of had a hiatus at Northwestern where we didn't have like the drum set room and stuff. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is a big part of the audition. I got to do that and practice sight reading. Yeah, everyone's kind of expected to do that. We just had a concert band audition 2 years ago, and it was kind of the same thing. We just weighted the excerpts more heavily. So we probably had like 30 excerpts instead of like 10, but they still had to do marching. We actually made them physically march up and down to make sure they like understood how to move and play, and then they had to play with the trio and they had to play drum set. So it's like all three things always exist. It just depends which is weighted more heavily, We have another audition probably in the next 3 years. Our section leader is like, can retire whenever he wants. He's past 20 years. And then the rest of us are all like 36. So it's like, he's the last one to go. And then we'll be like the same section for 15 years.
Can you talk about the region bands and how, if you know anything about those?
The regional bands, yeah. The regional bands, yeah, you guys feel free to leave whenever. Or if you need to start moving stuff for that concert, I know that it's like at 5, right?
Yeah.
You can take stuff out.
Guys, I'm recording this.
The regional bands, I mean, they're the same job as us. The biggest difference is they're just so much smaller. I never did it, but some of the people in our group were in regional bands and they like auditioned to try to get into the premier bands. And the stories I've heard from them is like, they still do the same type of performances. They still have to be really well-rounded. Maybe more so in that case because there's less percussionists, so they're asked to do extra stuff more often. But the biggest difference and the hardest part I've heard is that the admin side, because there's less of them, they all have like way more jobs than we do right now. Right. It's just the same amount of work, but split up on like 30 people instead of, we have like 130 people in our full unit. So it's like the studio, you know what I mean? It's like that size of people. So it makes it a little easier on us to the outside stuff and the pay, but.
Right.
Anything else?
Swear.
Cool. I appreciate you guys coming to this weird mid-Wednesday. I wish I could have chosen Friday. I know. Like as soon as Paul texted me, he was like, "So Friday at 1?" And I was like, "No, it's impossible. Our flight is Friday at 10 a.m. Like we're flying home." And he's like, "Okay, 1:42. Yeah, great. Yeah." So thanks for coming to the weird time. I know you guys are crazy busy. And it's like recital month, and everyone probably is playing tonight or something. But
It's that time of year.
yeah, it is. It's March or more in April now. I forgot. Cool. If you can come to the concert tonight, great. Like if you have time after the recital, it just would be interesting, especially if you're just interested in this job at all. Even just to make it to the last 20 minutes would give you a real quick like, oh, I understand what's happening, because it's not a concert band concert. It's like we travel with the whole choir. So like the first half is kind of a concert band concert, and the second half is kind of more like a show choir. I mean, they're up there and they're doing choreography, and we're playing like. Does the pop ensemble exist here anymore? Do you guys know what that is? This would be like a contemporary ensemble that Paul taught, and we would play like his old arrangements of like Peter Erskine tunes and pop tunes. Like half of my job is that I'm playing like comping chords on the xylophone tonight while the singer's like going off, and we're doing like the Wizard of Oz medley is literally what we're doing for like half the concert tonight. It's very fun, but it's very different. Like I'm playing like 4 mallet bell parts to them singing, and the drum set player is right in front of me playing a backbeat. That's like half of my job, and then the first half of the concert we're playing like, Lincolnshire posing and shit like that. So it's like you kind of have to do, like I'm saying, well-rounded. But I think it's really fun. I mean, I played in an orchestra, and I played in the orchestra here and at Northwestern, and like that's what made me want to be a professional musician, and that's all amazing. But like I play way more notes in the Air Force Band than I ever would in any of those other jobs. And at least for me, I thrive in that setting. I love being the mallet player. I play a lot of mallets in the band. And just having a really fun, cool project to do every month, because we're playing a lot of concerts. It's stressful, but keeps me really active, and really what makes the job fun for me, you know what I mean? Rather than counting 70 bars of rest and playing an amazing crash that sounds way better than mine, for sure. But that's not what the job I wanted. I really thrive on just like
the physicality of playing percussion is really my favorite thing about percussion. Just like, I love the way it feels. That's why I'm a quad drummer maybe. And I just like love that feeling and doing fast things and like getting it lined up. And that's so much about drumming. I really like, I'm not sure I knew that when I auditioned, but now that I'm in it, I realize how perfect it is for my interest in the musical part of it, you know? It's really fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Everybody else, we have a lot of equipment to move. You have